What's cracking, guys? Bruce Matz here, your host show of Metro Scout Fantasy Football. I got a clip from Matthew Berry on his podcast to show whatever fantasy focus of him talking about DeAndre Swift. You all know he's one of my favorite running backs in Dynasty, redraft, you name it, fantasy format. I'm drafting DeAndre Swift up. Been talking about him ever since his inception into the league. But I'm a big fan of DeAndre Swift, and I feel like I should share Matthew Berry's thoughts with you guys and then go over some of my analysis. So we're going to hit that up right now. Let's play the clip.
I am pro DeAndre Swift for a couple of reasons. I think the team will be better. I think the offense will be better. I think their offensive line will be better. And more importantly, most than for anything else, he's just really good. He's a really good running back. He's just super talented. We've talked about this before, that if DeAndre Swift had landed in a different spot coming out of college, he likely would have been the number one rookie running back drafted that year. It was only because of concerns about the Lions.
It's very true here. Jonathan Taylor, more than likely the RB1 in that class. However, he would have been bolstered up there if he was in a different situation. If he was in a grandiose situation like Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs, would have been a flirt for the 101, but that didn't happen, and a lot of people did fade him in rookie drafts due to him going to Lions. They were worried about the offensive line. They were worried about this team's transition. They were just not betting on the talent as hard as they should have. Kinda got killed on that. I was buying him up. I was a big advocate on that, especially at price. That was a good price tag, especially if you were at the 101, 1 or 2, and you weren't up big on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You could always just pay up to get him or trade back to get him. The wide receivers were going ahead of him a little bit. That caused him to go down in rookie drafts that year, but he was a huge value in rookie drafts.
Offense in their line that Swift went a little bit later than he probably should have in rookie drafts that year. Swift's a really, really talented running back. And again, I think they'll be in scoring position a lot more often. And I do think he is such a good pass catcher that whereas the passing usage may regress some, I don't think it regresses significant because it's such a weapon. It's such a part of his game.
Maybe. But Jamal Williams, awesome in the passing game as well. You've got like six guys. I'm not saying that. I've got him at 11.
You think about like Jamal Williams, he's not really a huge threat to steal a ton of the workload. Let's start looking over here at some of his statistics. Let's look at the opportunity share from last year. Had a 32% opportunity share, or 32% of the team's touches last year. Very large percentage of that. 19% target share. 51% of the team's rushing attempts. If you look at the game logs from last year, snap share pretty high, 75% on a lot of them, 70 or higher, 60 on the low, 56 was like his lowest, but again, at the end of the part, he was starting to wear down. We had a 93% snap share, so the snap share is pretty high up there. I'm not too worried about him not being on the field, and when you look at him from a receiving standpoint, this is where his bread is buttered. Target share, 19%, I covered that, but 5.9 yards per target. He's averaging 22 routes per game, and he's getting targeted on 26.9% of his routes. So about 1 out of every 4 routes that he runs, he's getting a target. That's a high influence in the passing game. He's got a 90% catchable target rate, and he's averaging 8.2 yards after the catch per reception, which is pretty good. That's a very good number. That means if he gets the ball in space, he's gone. And when you think about that, you just look at the athleticism here. Look who he's compared to here on Player Profiler. Maurice Jones-Drew, 4.48, 40-yard dash, 81st percentile size adjusted speed score. Solid profile, 5'8", 212. Team thick here. There's nothing not to like here. Target share in college was good, 69th percentile. He's a receiving back. He can do a little more. And you look at the game logs last year, 11 rushing attempts, 14 rushing attempts, 11, 13, 13, 12, 33, 14. So we're in double-digit rushing attempts, along with getting double-digit targets in some games. But really, target-wise, we're getting 5, 7, 6, 6, 7, 5, 6, 4. So good amount of targets per game. He's very consistent here, catching the ball in the backfield. Look at those catches racking up. The lows are in the 3s and maybe a 2. So those lower games, those are just going to happen. That's variance. But on the top end, you got 11 targets and 8 catches, 10 targets and 8 catches. Solid work there. 7 catches, 4 catches, 6 catches, 5 catches. A lot of work in the passing game, especially if you're in PPR, especially if this team starts hitting. If this team starts pumping out production, we could have another Christian McCaffrey on our hands. He's got the athleticism. We see it here. He's got the size. He's got the size-adjusted athleticism. He's got the chops in the receiving game. He's got the target share to prove it. That target share, I could see that increasing because he's such a weapon. Even with them adding weapons in the passing game, with him being that short to intermediate target and his ability to get 8.5 yards after the catch per reception, those chunk plays are very important. Let's go back to Barry. Let's see what else they got to say about him.
So I've got this one earmarked here because if he's more a runner than a receiver this year, and they continue to split carries with he and Jamal Williams like they did last year.
All right, now think about this. Why would he be more of a runner than a receiver? He's getting 8.5 yards after the catch per reception, large target share last year, solid in the passing game, in college. We know this is a big facet in his production profile, in his asset profile, his talent spectrum. Why would we just assume that they're just going to grind him between the tackles? That doesn't make any sense. They're not going to just go away from that. They're probably going to keep using him in the passing game because that's what he's good at. Why wouldn't they do that?
It might be a more difficult path to be in a borderline RB1 for DeAndre Swift than I initially thought.
Did you see photos of him?
I just don't understand the thought of that because you see the specs of him being used so well in the passing game. Like, I don't understand why you would divert from not using him in the passing game. I understand you added Jameson Williams. I understand Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good end of the year last year. I understand TJ Hawkins is pretty solid. But you use DeAndre Swift in the passing game because he's solid in the passing game. He's explosive. He can get you those chunk yards. I don't see them diverting from that, especially once we're on the field, we're calling plays, we see those chunk plays, we see what he's doing in space, you're going to check it down to him a little bit. And it's not just the play caller. Jared Goff's got some say in this. If he's dropping back, he sees Swift out in the flat, and he knows Swift can get you some yards after the catch. What is he going to do? He's going to dink it down there because it's the easy connection. And he's going to get those yards after the catch. We have the stats from last year to prove it. So I don't understand why we make this case.
By any chance this offseason? Like
is he in the best shape of his life?
Well, he is in the best shape of his life. But he came to camp like noticeably ripped. Like he looks thicker than he was last year for sure.
I also would argue that a lot of the players going in that range all have sort of nitpicky things that you can talk about there. You've got Aaron Jones in a split with AJ Dillon. You've got Nick Chubb in a potential 3-way split with Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson. You've got James Conner, who we've talked about.
That is true because you don't have that many pure workhorse backs in the NFL because running back attrition is real. Running backs get hurt if you overwork them, so you need to have a good, stable running backs in your offense. So you're going to catch a lot of these good running backs paired with another running back. DeAndre Swift is another one of those. But when you look at the snap share, let's go back to that. Let's look back at those snap shares. Really dial that in real quick. When you look at those snap shares from the game log, here, 68%, 63%, 56, 74, 74, 73, 78, 75. We're in the 70s. We're in the 90s. So he's on the field a fair amount of time. If he's on the field like 100%, 90% most of the time, being really high-end consistent there, we don't know if that would be too much. I feel like this is like the right amount. Considering he's getting usage in the passing game, considering he's getting targets, as long as he continues to get that workload in the passing game, I feel like we got a steady option for fantasy, no matter what. As long as he's getting these targets, this workload in the passing game, this volume, especially at a consistent rate, I'm not worried about him being on the field 75% of the offensive snaps. I want him to get those breathers because he is reeling off some chunk yards. He's running some routes, some more cardiovascular work on him. So yeah, let him get those breathers. I don't want him to get smashed up running between the tackles. So I'm cool with him getting that workload. So it's all good for me.
maybe getting vultured some by Darrell Williams and his injury concerns here. So there's a lot of guys sort of in that range that that you could certainly poke holes in if you want. I'm more of a, at that level, I'm willing to bet on the talent and Daniel, close your ears, and an improvement by this Lions offense.
I could see the Detroit Lions offense improving. I can see them taking baby steps forward, getting a little bit better, moving the chains a little better. DeAndre Swift, though, is a hell of a talent. I think he's underrated by some. I think he's overrated by some. But I think he's a very, very, very good talent. I feel like a good workload, especially in the passing game, like we've been seeing. Bar none, one of the most productive running backs in the league in terms of fantasy. And he's a guy that you really need to be investing in. And startup drafts and Dynasty, I want him almost at all costs. He's one of those running backs. After the top guys go, you're talking about the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, you're talking about the Jonathan Taylors. Once those guys come off the board, I'm really trying to dial in DeAndre Swift. And after that, I don't really care that much about the first round. Just a bunch of other dudes in the bubble. But DeAndre Swift's one of those backs that could really jump into CMC status. Christian McCaffrey, where you're just racking up catches, yards after the catch, and still getting some rushing production. That could happen. That's in the cards for him. Also, it could be somewhere in the middle below that, too, where he's just a good, productive running back in the passing game. So I want to tackle that upside. I'm not afraid of the risk because I think the downside is pretty much him being productive, missing games off and on throughout his career because we haven't had a full set of games on his career, and we saw him in college in a committee, so we never seen him be a true full workhorse, but I'm not worried about that too much because I'm getting this consistent workload, and he's being talented with that. I like DeAndre Swift. I think he's just one of the top running backs in terms of fantasy that we have in the NFL.
Than I am in just a that I don't think all of his some of his production was definitely junk time inspired, but I don't think all of it was. And I don't.
All right, so DeAndre Swift, I think I've said it enough. He is one of my top running backs in fantasy. Always has been. I've been advocating him on this channel a lot, especially last offseason. I kind of got away from that because I had to go into the rookies, had to go in some buys. He is high priced, and honestly, if you're looking to sell, he's always been a sell option due to the high price. Again, the value, if you want to offload to get extra chips, anybody you can sell off your roster. Everybody's sellable. He's also a buy in startup drafts. I don't see you catching him on the cheap unless something happens to him during the season, like he gets injured or something. That's probably the best time to buy him. I don't see his stock dropping soon. He's a younger running back. He still has some years ahead of him. He's been proven to be productive when on the field. He's been proven to get that workload. I like DeAndre Swift. I think he's a safe asset. I think you can use him on your dynasty team for a long time. Even if Detroit drafts another running back next year, say if Tank Bigsby falls to him in the third round, they say, you know what? I feel like Tank Bigsby can chew up some kneecaps. We like him. Dan Campbell wants him. They draft Tank Bigsby. You know what? I still want DeAndre Swift. I feel like with a tandem like that, DeAndre Swift can still be productive, can still give me something. And if that happens, I'm just buying the dips. I'm just buying dips on DeAndre Swift. I think he's a very good running back. Even when he starts getting older, my values and opinions may change a little bit, but that's with all older running backs. But right now, I got some years with him ahead of time, and I'm going to enjoy the production. I'm going to get him in startup drafts. Trades, I don't feel like I'm getting many done. Honestly, I don't think many people are selling them. If they have them on their roster, they weren't trying to wheel and deal him out last season, off and on when he was hurt. I don't see that happening now in the offseason as we start approaching redraft season where people are going to be talking him up, especially the consensus. But let me know what you think about DeAndre Swift. Is he a buy for you? Is he get for you? Or is he a sell? Or is it the value so high that you're just offloading or trying to offload? You may not be getting the offers you want, but at least you're trying to attempt it. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you smash that like button on the way out. Really helps the video and the algorithm. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Every subscription matters. It fuels me to keep pumping out this content to help you with your Dynasty Fantasy football teams and everything else. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll catch you next time.